Yeah, I grew up watching Leicester. My dad was a big fan, and my granddad, both season ticket holders. So I went from about the age of 8. I suppose in the early days, Peter Shilton would have been my big hero. Goalkeeper. It's funny, I was only 8 and I remember seeing him play in the cup final in '69, and which we lost, of course. And I cried all the way home, I think, on the train. But the weird thing is that I watched Leicester for all that time, and then I eventually played with Shilts for England and shared a room with him for a few years. And then when I retired, he was still playing. So it shows you the sort of longevity of his career. But but after that, it would be Frank Worthington. Really was my idol, and Keith Weller as well. Two Leicester legends, sort of players that you'd pay to watch. They could do things that ordinary players couldn't. With Frank, you'd get a bit of juggling, and he'd overdo it and over-egg it and play to the crowd a little bit, not always for the team. But he was, for the kids like I was at the time, he was great to watch, and lovely technique. And Weller was just a terrific player and caused so many problems down the right.
Despite the white tights?
Well, funny, the white tights thing, the week before that I made my debut against Oldham. It was in 1979, New Year's Day. And so a week later was the cup tie against Norwich, which was televised. And the three of us made our debut on New Year's Day, and Andy Peake and Bobby Smith kept their places, having scored, and I was dropped. But I only came in really because Keith Weller was injured, and they played me on the right wing where I'd never ever played in my life. So that was my excuse. But no, so the next week Weller comes back in my place and gets the gig and wears the white tights. Otherwise I'd have been famous for wearing white tights. I was always concerned about my stature. Because I really was diminutive, so it was an issue. But my dad said that he grew at 16, 17, and hopefully, everyone says you'll be as big as your parents, and in the end that happens. It's a bit of a relief. But on the football side of things, I was a slowish developer anyway. I always had massive pace and always scored goals. The technical side of things was a slow process, really.
What was Jock like as a manager?
Jock was terrifying in many ways. Great motivator, great man. His bite was much worse than his bite when you got to know him. I think his man management was terrific. I wouldn't describe him as tactically the best in the world after he was a goalie, for crying out loud. But he was, his organisation was basic. He got the team to run. He got the team passionate, and I thought he did a really good job for Leicester. My first 30-odd games, nearly all of them on the wing, and it was tough, and it ruined my scoring average at Leicester. I scored about 5 goals in my first 35 games. And it knocked it down to sort of fractionally worse than 1 and 2, which was a bit of a shame, really. Not that I was ever bothered about my goal scoring ratios, but much. Yeah.
What changed then? What sort of...
I don't know. I got my chance up front, really. That was the big factor in when I got things going. And from then on, I started scoring goals on a reasonably regular basis. Nothing ridiculous, but once I got to about 21, 22, I remember Gordon Milne took over, and I finished top scorer in the old second division, and then following season we got promoted, and I finished joint top scorer and won the Golden Boot in the first division. So it's just, it was nice to be able to do that with a so-called Leicester team like Leicester. There's one in particular which is often shown when they do these old things about me at Leicester with long hair. It was against Ipswich, and it was just after half-time, and we were 1 down, I think. Or it might have been 0-0 at half-time. But Russell Osman, who was a bit of a mate, and of course later played for Leicester and did well for many years, Russ was giving me a bit of stick at half-time about my ears or something. Can't remember exactly what it was about. And after 2 minutes, I got away from him and nicked it and flicked it over the goalkeeper. I remember turning around and giving him the little... Got a bit quiet now. So that was an enjoyable one. I remember a hat-trick one morning against Aston Villa. I think it was a 12 o'clock kick-off, and we scored 3 in the first half. Quite enjoyed that. And a couple against Coventry once, which always meant a bit. So there's a few in there. Actually, the scoring of the goals, there's not that many I can remember how I did it. In fact, I've seen goals that I scored on television that I have no recollection of whatsoever, which is a bit scary. And maybe I've got some wasting disease or something, I don't know. people talk about me now, they talk about the goal scoring record and will Owen beat it and stuff like that. Well, when I was his age, I still hadn't played for England. And he's already got 20 odd goals and 50 odd appearances. I didn't play until my last season at Leicester when I was 24. So I was a gradual developer. I always scored goals, but it was the rest of my game that needed to come together. I mean, I always made runs for fun and kept getting behind people. I was quick, but my touch and stuff needed work. And that got better, really. And it was once that got better, the improvement came quickly. Any player that is ambitious and wants to do well and is doing well, wants to play for a club that he can challenge for titles and win things. And that's what it was about, really. Nothing to, Leicester made me a good offer. It was nothing to do with that. It was hard leaving. It wasn't easy. I hummed and hard, and it would have been the easiest thing in the world to stay. Because I loved the team, and it was the toughest decision in football I ever had to make. But I was ambitious to play, and the Everton side at the time, if you remember, in the mid-80s, were terrific. And they create a lot of chances and challenging for trophies. I never thought for a minute I'd only be there for one season, but it was a good season except the first game, which was Everton against Leicester. Most Leicester fans will remember it. And I came and Brighty took my place. Brighty had a bit of a blinder, and I wasn't that good. And he scored 2 wonder goals. I'm not sure he scored any more that season, but he got 2 that day. And I had a bit of a shocker, but it was a tough game for me, actually. It was hard. I remember walking in at half-time, I went the wrong way, went towards the wrong dressing room. How embarrassing was that? And it sort of summed up my performance, really. I still thought I was in the Leicester blue rather than the Everton blue. The bizarre thing is, when you leave a club as a player, your affinities change a little. You still follow your old club, and you still hope they do well, and I was no different. But I'm being honest now. All you really care about is the club you're at. And it's weird how you're an Everton player and you hate Liverpool and you get on with it. And then you go to Barcelona and you're a Barcelona player and you hate Real Madrid. And then you go to Tottenham and you hate Arsenal, and you still look at your old results. Leicester, doing all right, but not with any great feeling. In all honesty. And then you go to Japan and you get injured. But the weird thing is, I came back after I finished playing, and I don't know if it's anything to do with the fact I had kids. And I thought, I come back to Leicester, and I thought, I'm going to see a game, and then you get into it, and the real enthusiasm for the club returned. And genuinely so. Whereas all of a sudden I was jumping up when they scored, and I really cared, and I was kicking if I had a cat, I'd kick the cat when you get home and all that sort of stuff. And you're getting the kids, and they're up and down with it, and all of a sudden I became a fan again, and I was jumping up and down the Match of the Day studio if Leicester had scored, and Hanson would be going, what are you doing, mate, and all that stuff. So, then I'm a fan again, and then obviously I'm getting involved a bit, and I know what's going on at the club, and then we've got problems, and it's financially, I was in touch with Greg Clark in the months up to when the club went belly up, and we were trying to work out a way of salvaging it without going into administration, but in the end the plug was pulled elsewhere by the creditors. So we had to do what we had to do and try and save it. And then I was right in it, and I was asked, Holmesy and John Holmes and Greg Clark came up and said, we want you, would you front the consortium? And it wasn't an easy decision to make, because I only wanted to do it if I thought we could pull it off, and I knew it'd be hard. But I had the opportunity to do what every fan at Leicester would want to do, and thankfully been in a position that I could afford to chip in myself. So that's what I did, really. Every fan would like to do that. I'm just lucky that I've managed to do reasonably well in life. I'd love to have had, be Abramovich and have so much money that I could just go in here and buy every player like. I'll never be able to do that, but I'm well enough off to, along with 20 other people, put a similar amount of money in to salvage what was a lost cause. And as long as people's expectations don't get silly, because none of us are incredibly wealthy people, so we're not going to be able to do what he's doing at Chelsea. But hopefully, I think we've already restored stability. I think there's a good spirit at the club. I think it's run properly now. I don't think people have to worry about its existence, and hopefully we'll go strength to strength. But it's going to be hard.